Hi everybody. I've got a video today where I'm going to decorate this vintage wooden spool so that I can use it to, when I'm hand stitching, use it to keep my scissors in, my little scissors. And I mentioned this when I did my So Pretty video, and I said I'd put the tutorial online. So I'm at the moment going to start the process. I am not going to alter this vintage spool at all. I'm not going to take the paper off. I'm not covering it. And I'm not gluing anything to or attaching anything serious to the spool itself. So that's part of my design thinking. So I went through my trims, and I originally thought I was going to take a piece of my favorite fabric from the green and white Pincushion collection I've been making and use it as a sleeve with a loop and a button and do that. But when I started digging through my trim, and it fits this spool so perfectly widthwise. So I'm going to basically wrap it, turn under the edge, and stitch it tight. So that's how it's going to get attached to the spool. I think I'll just cut that short now just to get that. No, actually I'm not going to, because there was a glitch here somewhere that I'd rather start further up. Okay, I'll do that later off camera. But that's going to be my base. And then as I dug deeper into my trims, I found this pretty beautiful pink one with some green in it, and I did like that. Actually, that's very pretty. But I also have this treasured little piece of ribbon that I got from I don't know where, and it's ripped, and it's got its stitching still in it, and it's very wrinkled. So what I think I'm going to do is, I think I really do want to use this trim, this ribbon. But what I'm going to do before I decide is, I've got the kettle on at the moment. It's a beautiful sunny day, so I've got lots of power. And I'm going to steam press this, and I'm going to see how it turns out. But I do think I am leaning towards using this one as opposed to the light pink one. And then also, so that you know kind of what my plan is, I intend to put some cotton batting underneath the ribbon. I've got scraps. Just a thin strip in just part in a certain section, so it's not all the way around, but in a, well, I'll see. This is going to evolve as I go, but I do think I'm going to have some batting underneath this so that when I am using it to store my scissors in by my hand stitching, I at the same time will be able to just put a pin or a needle in, and it will stay, which should be really helpful when you just want to put your needle down for a second. So that's my thought. And also, because this just comes out of the bottom, I don't want these scissors to scratch any surface. So what I'm also going to do is take a piece of this scrap of the batting and just stuff it in the bottom, just right there in the hole. I might not have taken a big enough piece yet. No, I didn't. I'm going to take a bigger piece. I was imagining this while I was falling asleep last night, how I would do this. So I don't want it all the way in, because you want the scissors to stay there, but yeah, so I'm just going to do that. Now I'm going to leave that there and then push it down the other way. There. So now when I put my scissors in, they sit nicely on that batting, and it won't come out. And even if it does, I just put it back. But I never have to worry about, oh, I might have to adjust that a bit. After all, there. you know, this is not going to hurt any table surface. Okay, I'll go wait for my kettle and see how this turns out, and then I'll come back and tell you what I decided. Okay, I'm back, and this turned out as lovely as I would have expected it to. And yes, it's got rips in it, but because it's such a small treasured piece that I have, I think it's perfect to use on the spool, where this other pink, which is very pretty, I have a lot more of, so I have a better chance of using this somewhere else on a larger scale. Plus, I really do love these pinks here. So I cut this, and I've got it temporarily pinned the way I intend to stitch it across here with a blind stitch. But before I stitch it like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to that and stitch most of it across as a piece of fiber, as opposed to not being on the spool. If it's on the spool, it's trickier to stitch. It's doable, but it's much trickier to stitch. So I'm gonna stitch them together first for the most part, and then just here at the back where I'll be attaching them to the spool, that's when I'll attach it to the spool. Does that, I don't even think that makes sense. I hope that made sense for you. And how I'm going to attach this ribbon to this crochet lace. I don't know, would you call that a lace? This very pretty green thing. I'm going to use embroidery floss and do a bit of a stitch on both sides, and I think that'll partially cover up some of the damage on the ribbon. And as the pincushion-y part of it, I have decided I am going to put it around the whole piece underneath the ribbon, like this. So that's about a ½ inch. I'm folding it double, and then it fits nicely right inside the ribbon. And then when I stitch it to the background lace, she says with a smile, you can see that I'll be stitching there, and I'll be stitching there, and then the center section has got a really nice cushion to it, which will easily allow me to just put a pin and a needle in there temporarily as it's sitting beside me while I sew. Oh, it's this way. There. All right, so that's what I've decided to do. I'm going to get going on that, not on camera. And when I get to a spot where I like attaching these together, like onto the spool, I'll stop and do that on camera. But the stitching of this and this, I don't even for sure know how I'm doing it yet. I'll come back and give you a bit of a viewing as I'm going when I've decided. This is an extra bit of video I've had to film after I made the whole video, because I discovered that one part where I thought I was turning the video on, I actually just took a picture, and then when I thought I was turning the video off, I took a second picture. So I'll just explain what happened in that part of the video, and I'll include the 2 pictures after this bit. So in that part, I basically showed how I took a piece of thin batting and folded it in half, and I basted it across the middle of the green trim. And that's how the video started, and that'll be the first picture you'll see that basted. And then in the video itself, I showed how I took the trim, the lovely ribbon, and I zigzag basted it across the piece. So I came down, went up, came down, went up, came down, went up, like that. And just holding it there so that I could do my stitching along the sides. But in that video, I hadn't decided yet what stitching I was going to do or anything else. So that's what you missed. I'll try not to do that again. All right, on to the next piece. Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna do this last little film clip before I lose the light from the windows. And then I'll finish stitching across that side tonight, and then I'll come back tomorrow, hoping I have sunshine tomorrow. I do think I have sunshine, and show you how I add it to the spool. So I decided, let's get this close-ish. I decided to use a very tiny blanket stitch with 2 strands of embroidery floss across the bottom. The ribbon had stitch holes all the way down both sides. So what I did is I not only used those stitch holes, but I also added a stitch in between the stitch holes. And there are places where the ribbon is deteriorating and it's not completely stitched down, but I think for the purpose of this, decorating the spool, it's perfect. And that turned out pretty with the tiny little stitches. So I'm gonna repeat across the bottom here, or across the top, I'm not sure which, with exactly the same. And just so that you, in case you don't know how to do a blanket stitch, you're coming up, can you see that? You're coming up at the bottom, and then you go down where you want your stitch width to go, and come back up. Because of the thickness of this, I was finding it easier just to do not like a stab stitch version. So I'm coming back up underneath. Something stiff there. And I'm leaving this loop around the needle, so when I pull, it connects from one stitch to the other along the edge. You see this stitch a lot on the edges of blankets, which is why it's called a blanket stitch. And if you put them right beside each other, that's known as a buttonhole stitch. Same stitch, just spacing is the difference. Okay, that's the next part. This is so pretty. I will see you tomorrow when I go to attach it to the spool. Okay, stitching is complete. I'll get it up here by the, see it? It turned out really nice. It's puffy. Where there was a bit of a slit in the ribbon, I did a bit of mending with the cream color thread, and you can't even actually see where that was anymore. So that's pretty fun. If I have to tell you, I mean, one of the things I would suggest is to be a little more generous, or I would be a little more generous with how long I made it. I thought I had made it plenty long, but it turned out with the stitching, of course, it shrinks, and then that has actually only left me, has actually only left me a very small 1/8 of an inch to do the overlap. I can do it, but if I was going to redo it, I would give myself some extra length to work with. So that's complete. Now, again, I'm not going to do the stitching on the camera, but what I'm going to do is I'll just pin this in place temporarily. I don't know if that's going to hold or not. It holds pretty good. So I'm going to first blind stitch across the ribbon, and then with a matching green thread, I will stitch the underlace together, and then it'll be held really well on the spool. So I will come back and show you the finished spool. Okay, it's complete. The stitching was definitely a bit fiddly, but really didn't take me any time at all, and it helped a lot to start in the center and then do the outside pieces. I did have this button. I think I said at the beginning I was thinking of doing a sleeve with a hoop and a button. This was the button that I had chosen for that. If I was going to do that, it's a pretty glass button. I was considering attaching that there, but I don't think it has a purpose, so I decided against it, as pretty as it is. So I'm very pleased with this. This is puffy enough to hold a needle and a couple of pins, while I'm stitching, as I have to put it down for a second kind of thing. And it's perfect for holding my scissors up too. So that's what it looks like. And it holds a needle and a couple of pins as required. There. What a fun little thing to add to my So Pretty collection. Great. Thanks for joining me. I plan to have some more of these kind of little projects. If there's a specific one you'd like me to tackle, please in the comments let me know. But yeah, I look forward to sharing more with you. Thanks for joining me.